dark, the jungle is your head. Can't rule your heart, but feeling so much stronger than I thought. Your eyes were wide because your soul, it can be bought. Your mind can wander. Hello, hello, I'm at a place called Vertigo. It's everything I wish I didn't know. It's you, give me something I can feel. The night, the phone of holes as bullets rip the sky of ink with gold. The twinkle as the boys they rock and roll. They know that they can dance, at least they know I can hear the beat, and asking for the check. Girls with crimson nails, Jesus round the neck, swinging to the music, swinging to the music. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Hello, hello, I'm at a place called Vertigo. It's everything I wish I didn't know. It's you, give me something I can feel. Jack faded, shots fall. All this can be yours. All this can be yours. All this can be yours. Just give me what I want and knowing it's hello, hello, I'm at a place called Vertigo. It's everything I wish I didn't know. It's you, give me something I can feel up deep in me. Your love is treating me
Sometimes it feels like the jungle is in our head, and as that great song says, it ends up ruling our hearts, which is what we're talking about as today we kick off week 2 of the Renew Initiative. So hey, welcome to Crosspoint. My name's Abby. We're so excited that you're tuning in with us as we continue perhaps one of the most important seasons in the history of Crosspoint, as we consider what God not only wants to do in us, but through us. And today we're going to take a look at how Jesus teaches us a powerful, counterintuitive dynamic when it comes to renewing. It's called surrender. But before we get to that, we'd love to connect with you, and the best way to do that is simply scan the QR code or fill out the form next to the stream. Take a moment, tell us about yourself. If it's your first time with us, I want to say we're so excited that you're joining us. Now, before we head back to the venue, just a couple of things that we'd like you to know. The first is this Renew Initiative that we've already mentioned. This is all of us listening, praying, engaging, sacrificing for a long-term vision, and getting a front row seat to see how God moves in and through us. For those of you who join us online, this includes you. In fact, we've got a couple special Renew Vision briefings just for you, and 3 virtual vision briefings. This is where you'll get to hear the nitty-gritty details about the Renew Initiative, have the chance to get the specifics on why, the what, the details, as well as ask some questions about what this Renew Initiative is all about. We'd love to have you join us. You can RSVP at this QR code. And if you've yet to get a Renew prayer journal, there are 2 ways to access this for you, our online crowd. First, you can download a digital prayer journal at crosspointweb.org/renew, or number 2, let us know on your connection card and we'll drop one in the mail this week. Another brand new way to connect, be sure to check out our brand new XBT Messages audio podcast, where all of our weekend messages are now available on your favorite streaming services. Whether you miss a weekend and want to listen in on your commute, during a workout, or on a run, check out and subscribe to XBT Messages on your favorite platforms, where you can get access to every weekend message right at your fingertips. And last, for all of you March Madness fans out there, mark your calendars. On Thursday, March 16th, you are invited to the March Madness viewing party here at the Commons at Crosspoint, which will include free Ale Emporium appetizers all day long, games on the screens, and of course some fellow fans to celebrate this great day. So join us for part of the day, all of the day, hang out all day, watch and work, or, just watch, enjoy the food. Then after the Thursday evening early weekend service that night, we'll cap it off with a March Madness after party. It is going to be a blast, all happening right here. All right, we've got a great service today. As we head into week 2 of the Renew Initiative, one of the things that history shows us is when hearts are full, lives are renewed, and it changes things, both us and others. Here is a great story from this past week's 40-day of prayer devotionals. Take a look at Danielle's story.
Hi, my name is Danielle Spudich, and today we're looking at Ezekiel 36:26, and the focus is all about the heart. And I will give you a new heart, and a new spirit I will put within you, and I will remove the heart of stone from your flesh and give you a heart of flesh. When I think about this verse, I think about a time when I let my heart grow cold. You see, I'd grown up in the church. My dad was a pastor. My grandpa was a pastor. I've kind of seen and heard everything around the church growing up. And when I went off to college, I started to realize that I didn't really have a good relationship for God, for myself. Everything that I had focused on growing up had been really mostly around man-made rules around religion. And so I started to question everything, and that made me just kind of turn around and walk away from God and the church for a little while. And during that time, sadly, a lot of my friends and even some of my family that were in the church, they took that opportunity to turn their backs on me as well, and they really judged me. And I have to say that it was painful, it hurt, and it caused my heart to grow cold for a while. It really wasn't until my husband, Jeff, and I decided to have kids did we start to really think and talk about God again. And I quickly realized I wanted my kids to grow up knowing about God. So, we started praying, trying to find a place, a location, a church where we could connect with and really focus on the relationship with God, not about all the rules and religion. And of course, we found Crosspoint and we hit the jackpot, which was great. And through the past 4 or 5 years since being here, I've still had to consciously make the decision to ask God, even sometimes daily, God, can you please continue to soften my heart? Keep it soft, and just give me a clean and a pure heart through everything that I go through. In fact, I remember a very specific time where I surrendered my heart back to God after being gone and, being cold and hard for so long. It was during an all-church journey. I remember walking up and just, laying it all, giving it all to God. I said, God, I am all in. I'm sorry for all the time I wasted not putting you first. Please use me for whatever you need. And I have to do that all the time. So obviously, the rest has been history, and I'm just so thankful to find a place where I can continue to pray about keeping my heart soft and keeping it open to where God can use me.
Man, how about Danielle right there? Let's give just a shout out to her and thank her for sharing a bit of her story. And she's right here on platform with us, and you heard a bit of her story. This is going out through the 40 Days of Prayer devotional. If you're not on that email strand right now, still time to subscribe to that, and you can get those in your inbox every single day. Well, man, we're excited you're here. My name's Curt, and if you're here for the first time, certainly excited that you're with us. Hope it's not your last time. Hope it's the first of many times. And how about those tuning online? Let's make some noise for those joining us in the online spaces across our city, our state, and our nation. Man, Excited to have you with us, and you might be thinking, if you're newer here, what have I just stumbled into? Well, perhaps something kind of amazing. In fact, we believe that these next, number of weeks that we're spending this time renewing might just be some of the most powerful of this year, perhaps even in a while. We just see that God's doing something, He's stirring something, and I think this is going to change the trajectory of lives, of families, of marriages, and we just believe that God wants to do something in us and through us. And so I realize you may not agree or believe all that. We're all at different places in our spiritual life, and you don't have to agree with anything that goes on here for that sake, but we're excited you're here, and we're in week 2 of this series, the Renew Initiative. And last week we looked at the prophet Isaiah, and he said something that really encouraged us on this front. He said, forget about what's happened. Don't keep going over old history. Be alert, be present. I'm about to do something brand new. Don't you see it? And so for us, we are just at a season where it's time to renew. It's time to renew our hearts. It's time to renew our lives, our passions, our commitment, engagement in the mission of what God's doing here at Crosspoint. And so we're kind of deciding in this season, are we going to go forward or are we going to go stagnant? And, the reality is we don't have to do anything. We can just kind of keep doing what we're doing. We don't have to, kind of call us forward or, rise up and build up people or build up capital and, build up commitment. We don't have to do any of that. We can just kind of stay where we are and as things go and, take the foot off the gas. But we've just decided, hey, we feel like this is a season when it's time to rebuild, personally, spiritually, but also our infrastructure and how we continue to go out the mission here at Crosspoint. So we're going to dig into this a bit further tonight, and I'm going to try my best to remove some barriers as we go through this season and help us take steps forward, give us a little push, if you will, and really help us get to some new places. So let me pray for us toward that end. God, thank you for the space, this time, and just, man, thank you for what you're already doing. It's been pretty amazing already for me personally, and I just think this is going to be a great 5 weeks, and so we just want to be open to whatever you have for us today, and we ask for you to move in our lives and bring a renewing. We pray these things in your character, Jesus. Amen. Well, some of you may have heard the name Peter Drucker. He was a big kind of organizational leadership guy of the mid 20th century. Did a lot with businesses, and later in his life, he became a Jesus follower. He began to follow Christ, and he really, in that season, began to put all of his energies into supporting and kind of helping empower and equip the local church. He really believed the local church was the hope of the world. And so one of the things that Drucker would say all the time was that a leader's number one job is to define reality. To define reality. And that's something that I'm going to kind of help us do today. And honestly, Jesus, he's the ultimate leader for us, and he constantly does this for us. He constantly defines reality. And so this is what we're going to be doing over this 5-week series. And, we just believe there's a renewing he wants to bring. We believe that there's something he wants to do in us. I think we feel that. We feel like we've been through some dry seasons, and we want a move of that spirit, even if we don't know exactly what that looks like. And so to facilitate that, we're going to talk about some things, and we're going to look at some realities in the spiritual realm that will help get us to those places. And kind of the culmination of this whole experience of the Renew Initiative is at the end of this series, March 23rd and 26th. We're going to be asking all of us, those who are part of the Crosspoint tribe, to make a financial commitment over 3 years to say, how can I help rebuild and renew what's happening here at Crosspoint, and bring a one-time first fruits offering on that weekend, March 23rd and 26th, to just kind of jumpstart and say, hey, we want to engage and we want to kind of ignite what God is doing going forward. And so I'm not going to guilt anybody in this direction, but at the same time, you're going to find we get pretty passionate about what's going on around here. So over the next 4 weeks, we're not going to talk much about really the initiatives and the numbers and the specific things in the Renew Initiative and what's going to fund. As you heard earlier, if you want to find more of that out, you can go to one of our vision briefings. We would love for you to come to one of these. You can scan this QR code. We've got 6 of them coming up online. For those of you who tune in online, we would love to have you join one of the online experiences. For those of you who want to come in person, they're going to be right here at the Crosspoint campus. Because, see, it's not really in the big picture about the numbers. All right, the coolest part of this is what's going to happen in our hearts, the renewing and the growing that's going to happen. And one of the things we've seen over and over around here is that when we go through this process and when there is a renewing and a filling, our engagement index just goes up, up, up. I mean, we begin to see things. We begin to be drawn to things. This is what causes people to jump in and start, engaging and volunteering and using their time and their talent to serve people. In fact, right now, we have like 25 spots, across Crosspoint that if we could just get volunteers in those spots, we would better be equipped to serve the people that we're serving right now. And we want to continue that going forward. Maybe you're one of those people that your heart's just beginning to be soft and you're like, hey, I want to begin to give a bit of my time to serving people. We notice our compassion index goes up. I mean, we begin to see things in our community, our neighborhood. We serve our neighbors and our friends in different ways because our hearts are just more open to what's going on in their lives, both physically and spiritually. And we also see our generosity increase. I mean, not just in the joy box. Yeah, but, and through this initiative, but we see this all around. We saw this at Christmas through our give initiatives with the meal box drive and with the angel tree, the giving tree, and with, supporting things like Grace Horizon. You guys were amazing in supporting these things. This is what happens when God begins to stir in us and lives are changed as a result of it. So over the next 4 weeks, we're just going to go through a process where we're going to be asking first, all of us to go, okay, God, what is it you want me to surrender? What in my life do you want to maybe move in and out of my life? And, how do you want to use my resources? I mean, what do you want to do with what I have? Meaning, if I could get all of my stuff, this box right here is it's kind of sad. It represents a lot of stuff that's, when I say sad, all the important things in my life are contained in this box right here. What if I just took all those things and said, okay, God, those are all on the table. All those things are things that it's not really mine, it's yours. And so we're going to be looking at this. In fact, if this whole concept's new to you, we have a great little book that we want to give you free. It's called The Treasure Principle. And this is something that is in the Commons, and so you can just pick it up if you've never read it, and it will change the way you see your stuff. It'll change the way you view things that God has put into your life. And so I hope you'll pick that up today. And then the second thing we're going to do is, okay, God, what do you want that perhaps you've entrusted to me that you want back? And we're gonna listen. Second step is to listen. Now, a lot of ways we're kind of facilitating listening through this initiative. I hope you were able to pick up a journal. As Abby said, if you have not, grab one of these on your way out. They're online. If you want one in the online spaces, a physical journal, let us know. We'll mail it to you. This is a part of us listening, just spending time seeking God's heart, journaling each day. We've got emails that are going out. If you're not in that loop, with the daily guide, you'll get a little message like we just heard from Danielle. You can let us know, and we'll add you to that list. And then we also have this Tuesday prayer and fasting happening right here in the venue every Tuesday over the lunch hour, which last week, by the way, was just amazing. I mean, a number of us through here and just having some quiet time to just on our own spend some time talking to God. And I had a number of people on the way out go, man, why would we not extend this past just the 40 days of this initiative? Perhaps we will. I don't know. It was that meaningful for those that came. So if you want to be a part of that, man, join us this Tuesday anytime between 12 and 1, or you can pray and fast wherever you are in the space that you're at. And then third, we're going to respond. At the end of this, we're going to respond. We're going to kind of challenge each other to come together. And the Apostle Paul, he says God loves a cheerful giver. And cheerful givers are challenge givers. They're people who have been encouraged and kind of challenged to, hey, what can God do through you? And so we're going to do that. And, we talk about all kinds of things around here. We talk about relationships. We talk about dating and marriage and intimacy and sex. And we talk about, parenting and leadership and EQ. I mean, just all kinds of things that really connect in that life. And yet, how often do we talk with each other about, how's your giving going? How's your financial generosity going? How much money were you able to write off on your taxes this year because of your generosity, impact? Like, those are just things we hold close to the vest, right? And we start talking about that, and we get all kind of, oh man, we put barriers up. And so just so you know, there's no ass tonight. You can let your sphincter down. Just everybody take a breath. Just relax. We're just preparing our hearts for what perhaps God wants to do in us. See, one of the reasons Jesus talked about money more than anything, more than prayer, more than heaven, more than really anything that he talks about. In fact, he gives us kind of a glimpse into his heart right here. He says, for where your treasure is, our stuff, the things that we own, that we possess, he says, wherever that is, he says, your heart's going to be right there. Your heart's going to be right there. See, he understood that money, our stuff, our possessions are the chief competitor for our affections toward God. And many times we get so kind of caught up in our stuff that God says, hey, that's where I want to be in your life. And so if we're going to talk about renewing our hearts, we have to talk about our relationship with our stuff. So today, we're going to take a look at one of Jesus' parables to help define this reality. And we look at this parable every single time we go through one of these seasons. And so I just think it's a healthy thing to reevaluate where we're at on this. If you're hearing this for the first time, I think this is going to give you a picture of, oh my gosh, okay, what is God wanting to do in me, but what also does he want to do through me? And so a parable is just a made-up story. And Jesus wasn't lying, all right? He just made things up every now and then to illustrate like a point. And the cool things about parables is you will always find one of the figures in the story is the God figure. And so you got to say, okay, where's God in this? Because he's in there. And then there's also in every parable, you and I. And so we're represented in there. And so you have to say, okay, where am I in this story? Because I'm in this story. So let's read this parable from Matthew 25. I'm going to just kind of walk us through, begin with verse 14. Jesus says, again, it means the kingdom of God. He's talking about the kingdom of God. Again, it will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and here's our big word right here, and entrusted his wealth to them. He didn't give his wealth to them. He entrusted it. He said, hey, I'm going to give you my wealth to manage for me. So a couple realities as we get into this story right here. Number one, God owns everything. God owns everything. In this story, there are three different individuals that are going to be entrusted with the master's wealth. You and I, everything we have, whether you have come to understand this or not, everything we have comes from God. Now, through the years, I've had a defining kind of moment with each of my kids that kind of helped solidify this with them. We'd go out to lunch somewhere, we'd be eating as a family, or I'd be out with them, with a couple of them at a time, and we'd be out at McDonald's or Chick-fil-A or one of those places, and get a little Happy Meal, and they'd have nuggets and fries, and they're just eating their fries like a little rabbit, and all of a sudden in the middle of that, I'd just pick one of their fries up and I'd just eat it, and they'd look at me like, what are you doing? And I'd take another couple of fries, and and before long, they're like, no, these are mine. And, they'd look away, and I'd take a whole bunch of their fries. I'd just eat their fries. And I'm like, no, mine. And I'd be like, wait a second. Did you pay for those fries? And I'm like, no. Did you create those fries? No. Well, let me tell you something. Those fries aren't yours. Those are God's. In fact, did you plant the potatoes? You create the potatoes that made those fries? No. Would you have the ingenious idea, like the McDonald's brothers did to create, a fast food chain that created these really unhealthy but really good, potatoes and fry them? No. Listen, you didn't do anything. These aren't yours. These are God's. These came from God. And they kind of look at me and they're like, mine. And listen, it's like, you have no idea how much resource I have. I could buy you fries until they're coming out of your ears, but you're all worried about your little pile of fries right here because it's mine. And, I do this little, thing. It really works. Parents, I'm telling you, this sticks. If you want to help your kids understand, hey, God created everything, because here's what happens now. Our kids were home from college a few months ago. I think it was over Christmas break. They're getting ready to go back, and they have to provide their toilet paper in their bathrooms. And so we do the Costco big, block of toilet paper. And they're both going to campus, and they're taking the whole sleeve with them, each of them. And I'm like, wait a second, you're taking all our toilet paper. And my son goes, oh, no, Dad, that's not yours. It's God's toilet paper. So, it sticks. I'm telling you, it will get in your mind. It will get in your kid's mind. Okay, everything I have comes from God. Now, this is what our stuff does. It creates this disillusionment that we feel like we have to hoard it. We feel like we have to keep it all, and it's mine. No, God owns everything. God owns everything. You might be thinking, Curt, what are you talking about? Everything I have, I've earned. I've worked for. I've worked hard for. Well, who gave you your work ethic? Who gave you your ability to go to trade school or to get your MBA? Who gave you your mind? Who gave that to you? Who gave you the body structure to do the labor job and be really good at it? Who gave you, the ability to live in the United States of America? Listen, we've got problems here in our country, right? But listen, it's still the best place to live, most opportunity in the world. Who gave that to you? Everything we have actually came from the hand of our Heavenly Father. And see, when we begin to see life this way, man, we begin to view it differently. It changes how we view life. It changes how we view God. So let's see how Jesus continued this story here. Verse 15, it says, to one, he gave 5 bags of gold. In other versions, it talks about talents. Golden talents, kind of the same thing. To another 2 bags, and yet to another 1 bag, and each according to his ability. And so just like any good boss, manager, somebody who's kind of saying, okay, I'm going to put my employees and to trust them with certain things. This manager's going, okay, you right here, you're a 5-bagger. You got a lot going, right? You're right here, a 2-bagger, and everybody else, you get 1 bag. All right, 1 bag. Now, this is interesting because this this is where we see another reality of who God is, because this is a reality that God entrusts to all of us unequally. And see, this is a hang up for some of us right here, because some of us are like, man, that's not fair. Why'd God give more to them and not to me? And so we get in this like hang up with God. We're like, God, I just want you to be fair. Listen, you do not want God to be fair. You know what happens when God's fair? You die. That's what happens. All right? None of the grace that God created on behalf of through Jesus, none of that comes your way because you don't deserve it. None of that should come our way. We don't deserve it. What he does for us is totally undeserved and unfair. Now, all these people in this story, all three of them, they get a lot of jack, all right? They get a lot. Because one talent or one bag of gold in this version right here is equivalent, think about this, to 20 years of a day laborer's wage. So the one guy gets 20 years day laborer's wage. He gets one bag. Another guy gets 2 bags. He gets 40 years of day laborer's wage. The third guy gets 100 years of wages. I mean, that's a lot. So, no matter what's going on in our life and what we have or don't have, here's our third reality. God is a very, very generous Father. Very, very generous. And see, we're good with that. And we're like, yeah, he isn't. And I'm thankful for that. And we're all cool with that until someone else has something we didn't get. Have you ever noticed that? It's like your car. Like, you're good with your car, right? You're like, I love my car. I love my cars until I see somebody that has stuff in their car that I don't have. Then I'm like, man, when they get that car? And I want the self-driving feature. And, or you go to like a friend's house and they have 12-foot vaulted ceilings and you only have 9. And you're like, honey, you get home, you're like, honey, I just feel cramped. And you're like walking around, you're like, with your head low, you're like, I just feel like we need higher ceilings. It's like we're fine with it until we see what somebody else has. And then all of a sudden, we're not okay with it. Have you ever noticed how that works? See, in my life, I have actually seen both of these last two principles at work. I very clearly see God is very, very generous. And yet at the same time, God is unequally generous in giving toward me. For instance, why is it that I get to be the pastor of this group of people? Why is it that I get to be this pastor of this amazing group of people called Crosspoint? I mean, why is it? I think it's pretty cool. I don't know. I mean, listen, there are pastors that, are much more spiritual than I. There are pastors who know the Bible better than I do. There's pastors who don't spit when they talk, who don't make up words along the way. You'd be embarrassed if I told you what I said earlier today when we were running through this. It was not sufficient for work, okay? Just slipped out. And there are pastors who use a lot better language than I use. Mine gets kind of, not is kind of crass at times. There are pastors who just are more godly. Why are those pastors sometimes stuck someplace where their church just sucks them dry? I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I mean, honestly, I have a great job, and it's an honor. I feel blessed. In fact, I tell people sometimes, I used to have a friend that would say this all the time. He'd say, people wish they had my problems. Man, I feel that way all the time. I got problems. We got problems. Everybody's got problems. Man, people wish they had the problems that I get to work through. It's awesome. Well, why me, though? I don't know. On the other side of that, I love to run. Love to be outdoors, and over the last number of years, I've now had 3 meniscus surgeries on one of my knees. I continue to have problems with it, and the one in the fall, I'm still kind of rehabbing back. I'm only running like 1.5 miles a day, every other day. I can't run 2 days in a row. And I'm like, okay, God, I love this. Why am I having these problems? And then I see, some of you're like, the furthest you work out is going from the couch to the fridge to get a beer. You're like, that's it? And yet you got great knees. I'm like, why do you get those knees and I don't get those knees? I don't know. I could go on and on and on. God gives. He gives unequally. See, the point here is you can look at your life and see things that other people have that you don't, and things that you have that other people don't. And when we begin to notice these things and we begin to see God is involved in both of those, when we begin to reflect and go, oh my gosh, I see God in both of those scenarios, when I reflect on that, guess what happens? I spiritually grow. That's why I hope you're doing some journaling in your Renew journal. Because, man, when you reflect and you begin to see things about how God operates, it spiritually renews us when we allow ourselves to see this tension. Jesus, he goes on right here. It says, then he, and now he's talking about the master. He said, then he went out on this journey. And the man who received 5 bags of gold at once went and put his money to work and gained 5 bags more. So the guy that was given 5 bags, he goes out and he invests it. And as we're going to see in a moment, after a really long time, he goes back and doubles that investment, and he brings double what he was given back to his master. And then verse 17 right here, it says, so also the one with 2 bags of gold gained 2 more. So he did the same thing. So he takes his 2 bags, what he was given, he goes out, invests it, and after a really, really long time, as we're going to see again in a moment, he doubles that, and he has twice as much to bring back to his master. And then verse 18, it says, but the man who received the 1 bag, the 1 bagger, all right, he just went off and dug a hole in the ground and hid his master's money. And then it says after a long time, which means like a really, really, really long time, like when Jesus in these parables says after a long time, usually what he means is after a lifetime. So like after a lifetime, like when you get to the end of your life, he says after a really long time, like at the end of your life, the master of those servants returned. And look at what it says right here. It says he settled accounts with them. I love the little phrase, settled accounts. This is fascinating. See, he's going to ask them a really, really powerful question right here. And the question he's going to ask them is simply this right here. He just wants to know, okay, while I was gone, what'd you do? What'd you do with what you had? You know, with all the things I entrusted you with, your time, talent, resources, what'd you do with that? See, he settles accounts. And this leads us to our next reality, which is that God holds all trustees, all of those who he has entrusted things to, he holds trustees accountable. You know, there's a time where God's going to open the ledger books up and you say, okay, what'd you do? You know, I entrusted you with, you know, part of what I have, and I was generous. What'd you do with that? All right, and you're going to be held accountable. And we get this. We're like, oh, why is he going to do that? Well, we understand this in every aspect of life, right? I mean, your retirement account, if it's not doing what you want it to do, what do? You pull that sucker, right? You're like, man, I'm shifting funds, putting it somewhere else. We get this. But somehow we kind of expect God to go, well, it's okay. I mean, I'm glad I entrusted you with this enormous generosity, but, you know, it's okay that you just sat on it. You just, like, buried it in the ground for a bit. I mean, think about it. Why would God be okay with that? No, he holds them accountable, right? That's just like the way his economy works. And what is he holding them accountable for? It's not like how many buildings they build. It's not, you know, how many ministries they started. He's not really that interested in buildings and ministry. What he's interested in is people. And so he wants to know, how did you use what you had to impact the lives of people? Like, as opposed to just sitting on it and letting it sit in the ground, going unused. And so 2 people were given 2 different allotments, 2 bags, and the other one was a 5-bagger. And they take what they've been given, and they take it out, and they basically make that money work for them. They double it. And so here's what the master says to them when he comes back. He says, well done. Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will now put you in charge of many things. Come and share. Look at this last phrase. Come and share in your master's happiness. I mean, there's a happiness that comes. There's a joy that comes when we're about what our Father is doing. And this is one of the things where the blessing actually comes after the following, after the obedience. He says, man, there's a blessing. There's a joy that comes. There's a joy. 5th reality, good and faithful trustees, they provide a return. See, God, he's not interested in divesting ourselves. He doesn't want us to just give everything, have nothing, lose all our traction, our footing. He wants us to invest ourselves. I don't know why. For some reason we think, man, if I get too close to God, if I'm too open with what God wants to do in my life, man, he's going to strip me bare. I'm going to be
living in a van down by the river.
That's what's going to happen. That's our fear right there, right? Man, God's going to take it all. I'm not going to have anything left. No, God doesn't want to do that. He wants to actually use what he's given you to invest and build others. He keeps going. He says, then the man who had received 1 bag of gold came. Master, he said, I knew you were a hard man, harvesting where you had not sown, gathering you had not scattered seed. And so I was, and look at this word right here. It's a huge, huge word. I was afraid. It's amazing. It's amazing what fear does to us and causes us to do. I was afraid, so I just went out and hid your gold in the ground. I dug it back up. Here it is. Here's what belongs to you. And then verse 26, and remember, this is a parable. Jesus made this up. Before you read these words. His master replied, you wicked, lazy servant. He's like, so you knew that I harvested where I had not sown, and you knew that I gathered where I hadn't scattered seed. I mean, it's like he knew he was a hard driver. He's not apologizing for being a hard driving, for expecting a return. Now understand, the master's not mad at the servant because he did something bad. All right, he's not mad at the servant. Why is he? Because he like did something illegal, or he did something immoral. He's not mad at all for that. Why is he mad with the servant? He's mad with the servant because he didn't do anything. He just buried what he had, put it in the ground. He didn't do anything at all. See, it's not what you have. It's not what you start with. It's not even what you have in comparison to others. The question he kind of helps us get clear on is, okay, what am I going to do? What am I going to do with what I have? And then he wraps up. He says, well, then you should have put my money at least on deposit with the bankers, so when I returned, I would have at least received it back with, like 0.05 interest or whatever the interest rate was. But instead, you sat on your butt. You didn't do anything. You wicked, lazy servant. Sixth reality right here. Lazy trustees always have an excuse. They always have an excuse. Have you noticed that? He's like, I knew you were a hard driver. I didn't want to disappoint you. I didn't know if I do the right thing. I was afraid. And so I just buried it. I just sat on it for a while. Listen, we can come up with the greatest excuses ever, right? About like why we don't use our stuff and our time and our talents for, impacting people's lives. We naturally make excuses. And we know they don't really land. If you get, pulled over by a police officer because you're speeding, it doesn't matter what excuse you give. I should have been pulled over last week. I wasn't. The person next to me that went just a little faster got pulled over. I was totally going faster than the speed limit, but I didn't. But if I would have given an excuse, it wouldn't have mattered. If you put somebody on a performance plan in the office and they just kind of, dink around for 5.5 months, and then 2 weeks before the end of it, they're like, man, I got to show my value. Listen, it doesn't matter what excuse you come up with. It doesn't matter. But for some reason, we just sit on our stuff and we're okay keeping it buried. So over these next few weeks, we're going to explore this question. Okay, God, what do you want to do with what I have? And we're going to kind of talk about, these possessions that we've been given. Okay, God, what does it mean to surrender on these fronts? Because this is all a part of renewing, by the way. I don't know if, you realize, but this is part of how God renews our hearts. And so I want to kind of walk you through something Julie and I do every single time we come to one of these initiatives, because some of us are new to this. We just recognize, okay, everything we have, God, like my cell phone right here. I love my cell phone. I can't imagine life without it. Cost me quite a bit of money, but that's on the table. You've given it to me. You helped me fund that with stuff you've given to me, so that's just want you to know I recognize that as yours. All right, and then here's my house keys. My house keys, God. I love my house. We moved into our house about 4.5 years ago. We've loved our house. Just as a space for our family. And this is the 5th house we've lived in. And every time we move into a new house, we really just say, okay, God, we're using the money you've given us to help fund this. And yet at the same time, this is really yours. This is your space. It's not ours. We treat our house that way. In fact, a few weeks ago, we had a friend who was quite ill for a while, and he lived in our basement for a time because we have space, and we just were like, God, we want you to use this space to bless people. That's just our posture with our house. So God, I don't know if you want me to downsize or upsize. I'm open. Whatever you want to do, that's on the table, including my furniture, which I like to sit on in my house. You know who else likes to sit on my furniture? My dog, Minnie. She likes to sit on my furniture, leave her hair all over it. And in fact, this is your dog, God. She's gotten better. She used to make a lot of messes. Now, she only pees on the floor every now and then. It used to be like she'd do submissive urination stuff. Somebody new'd come over and she'd just leave a puddle on our floor, God's floor. So it's like, all right, God, just leave a puddle on your floor. Minnie's right there. And then, recreational vehicles. I've got a couple snowmobiles. They don't look nearly as nice as this. This is a really nice one. These are ones I rebuilt, but they're sitting in my backyard right now because, God, you haven't actually sent much snow this year. So they're sitting on a dry backyard. They're probably going to go on a trailer and sit in a parking lot now for the next 9 months. So I don't know. Maybe this is the season where you want to repurpose that. You want to say, okay, that was great for a season, but let's get rid of that and reinvest that cash. We have 3 cars in our home. All Hondas, two Honda vans and a Honda Pilot. And total of about, 456,000 miles across all 3 of them. 2 of them are paid for, one's still being paid for. And I love my cars. I love my cars until I see some of your cars. I'm like, I think I want your car. Because it's funny how you're good with what you have until you see what everybody else has. But I like my cars. But those, every time we go through the season, okay, God, those are on the table. Our retirement, I got retirement accounts. Julie's got a lot of retirement accounts. God's allowed us to be able to, fund some of our future retirement, hopefully one day. But that, every time we get here, well, God, honestly, our trust is in you. We're trying to be diligent, but everything we have, we see as yours, including our cable. We cut cable actually a number of years ago during the Crazy Initiative, as many of us did, and repurposed what we were paying for cable to give to something we love more, which is helping Crosspoint, go forward into, buying this land, and a bunch of you did the same. Since then, we have re-added Netflix, Disney Plus, Hulu, Sling. We got all the applications. And it's like $5 here and $7.99, $10.99, $29. But perhaps God in this season is saying, okay, maybe I want to repurpose some of those. So, we just go through the process of all the things we have, including, this is an interesting one. This is my Colts season tickets. This is something I love to do with my son. And honestly, I make money on this one partly because we're really bad. We have a lot of 1 o'clock games. I can't make 1 o'clock games, so I sell my tickets and I make money. I make more money than I pay for them. And so God probably doesn't want to take that back, and he knows my son and I love it, but every time we go through the season, it's like maybe this is a time where we have to reconsider. See, this is a process of surrender that we go through. Every time we go through this season, we say, okay, God, what do you want to do with what I have right here? And the other thing that's interesting with this is all this involves time too. It takes time. Like all these things require a relationship to maintain or to do them. And so this process of surrender is really want to say, okay, God, it's all yours. What do you want to do in this season? And here's the American reflexology that kicks in right here. So for instance, our 2012 Honda Odyssey van, we had 2 cars in the shop over the holidays. One, my car was totally unusable and had really extensive repairs. One of our other older vehicles had some problems. And that one was the only one that was working well. And, we had to make the decision, do we replace my car or do we make about 4 car payments worth of a payment to repair it? And we decided to go that route because it's like after we pay that, 4 months later, assuming it makes it, we're not paying a car payment. So that's what we did. And about a week later, my daughter, who works with CSM here, came to me and said, hey, Dad, could CSM use our van, to go to the ski trip here coming up? And I'm like, no, you are not. I said, this is the only car we have that's working well. All of them are either in disrepair, need repair, I just put a lot of money. No, you're not. No, you're not doing that. And like everybody, we were getting ready for dinner, and everybody just kind of was like, oh, man, what's up with Dad? And I stood there for a moment, got real quiet, and God just kind of said to me, remember, it's not yours. It's not yours. So I said, guys, I am sorry. It's not mine anyway. And the kids were like, oh, yeah, it's definitely not. That was bad, Dad. Remember, it's all God's anyway. And so, they took the van. But see, this is what happens. This is what happens right here. What happens in our lives is we hold our stuff like clenched fists, like, this is it. It's mine. It's mine. God, it's mine. And what's interesting is when we're in this posture, it's mine. It's mine. We can't receive any more from God because there's nowhere for him to put it. Now, when we stand like this, he certainly can perhaps take things out of our hands that maybe he wants to repurpose, but when we're like this, he also has a place to bring us new things. The other interesting thing is when we stand like this and we just clenched over, our stuff. At some point, God may want some of our stuff back, and when he has to begin to peel our fingers open, I tell you what, that is a painful process. Some of you experienced that. In fact, some of us, we've had pain like this in our lives, and we're like, why would God do this? Perhaps it's really because we live like this, and so we're just not open to perhaps the things God wants for us. Because see, the way God really wants us to live is in okay, God, everything I have is yours. What do you want to do? I surrender. It's a posture, it's a spiritual, it's a physical posture with my stuff. It reminds my heart that everything good comes from you, and I'm ready for what's next. I want more of that. If you're ready to bring it, more of you. Perhaps there's some things you want to take away. And so I just think that part of renewing is getting to a place of surrender. And I think over the last few years during the pandemic, we got separated from each other. We had a lot of distance, and I think it was very easy for us to become focused on ourselves and to say, okay, I got to take care of me first. And perhaps it's a season where God's saying, okay, yeah, what do you have, and what are you going to do with what I've entrusted to you to be a blessing to others? And so this question, what do you want me to do with what I have? This is what we're going to be wrestling with. This is the posture of surrender. And the crazy thing is, God doesn't need this stuff. He doesn't need any of it. He can totally has the power to work without us even doing this. But the crazy thing is he invites us to be a part of his work because he knows it also does something in our hearts and our lives. And so the band's going to lead us in a song as we wrap up, and it's become one of my favorite songs because it talks about making room. And as they sing for us, I'm just going to ask you to kind of sit and ask yourself, okay, am I willing to be in an open posture? In fact, you might even, as you sit there, just sit, as an expression of that, say, I'm going to open my hands up on my lap. You don't have to put them up. You don't have to just, it's dark in here. If you're in a posture saying, God, I want more of you in my life, and I'm open. I want to surrender right now to whatever you want to do in my life, through my life, with my stuff. It's all yours. Would you just join me in having this posture right here? And let's just be open to whatever God may want to do in and through us. In fact, let me pray toward that. And God, thank you for what you're doing and for inviting us to trust you and to be open. And I just pray for those of us that are ready, that are open-handed, God, would you just move? Would you begin to move and continue the renewing? Would your Spirit just sweep through, even right now, up and down the rows, and just renew our hearts and just begin to create a clarity as we surrender ourselves to you.
Every
Thanks so much for joining us. Our prayer is that you are open and ready for God's renewing presence to sweep over you. A great way to stay in tune is with this 40-day Renew prayer journal, which is available at crosspointweb.org/renew. You can download one right now. And also, we'd love to see you at a Renew Vision briefing. Now, if you'd like someone to pray with you today, you can text the keyword Need Prayer to 317-834-7373, and a member of our prayer team would love to be in touch with you. If you like what you've experienced today, you can donate by going to the online Joy box, go to the Give button at the top of the screen, make a donation, and know that when you do, you're fueling things like this online experience that's bringing joy and hope, changing lives all around our city, state, and country. So thank you for being a part of helping make this happen. Next week, for part 3 of the Renew Initiative, we can't wait to see you then. Have a great week.